Hello, everybody. I have a very interesting connection to make for you. I've been in the process of translating Chapter 2, Part 2, and I got to a location where certain tools from the Neolithic were found. And it's also listed, obviously, in the book Ancient Dacia by Nikolai Densushanu. It's also listed where they were found. And one of these words that is listed in here, now keep in mind, this book was written over 100 years ago. The spelling of the words since 100 years ago has changed, even in Romania, even though Romanian is still the closest to original Latin. Latin, or Proto-Latin, being the language of the Pelagians, being the language of the Getae, who also became the Goths. This is listed in the Getica, written by Jordanes. They were also the ones called barbarians, but actually they were the most educated of people. Anyways, this word, peștera, today, in Romanian, means cave. Peștere is caves. Actually, no. Peștere singular. One cave. I'm sorry, I messed that up. Peștere is caves. Peștera is one cave. Okay. Now, I found this very interesting because in Romanian, the word pește means fish. Wait. Why is it not showing it? Okay, so pești is fish, but singular is pește. Pești is multiple fish. What the heck? Okay. Fish. Oh, because they add the little thing at the bottom of the S. That's right. So yeah, pește is fish. Now going back to what I was showing you. Peștera here is not written with a T. Instead of a T, there's a C. So today the correct spelling would be P-E-S-T-E-R-E-A. But back 100 years ago, there was a C instead of a T. And that made me really think about something important. The Pelagians, I have identified them as being the Sea Peoples. The Sea Peoples, you can go to Wikipedia, there's a lot of conjecture about where they came from, when they lived, who they were, blah blah blah. It's all speculation. There's, like, see, part 4, hypothesis about identity. Philistine hypothesis, Minoan hypothesis, Greek migrational hypothesis. Alright, you speak of Greek migrational hypothesis. Alright, let's explore this idea for a second. And let's go to the greatest historian. No, Histories of Herodotus. Text. I was actually reading book 1 a couple days ago. And I noticed that there is a lot of truth, but there's also a lot of lie. He switched a lot of things around. But the one thing he did mention, which is still relevant, okay, here's what he says. When the language... Oh wait, that's too soon. Gotta go back. Of all the answers that had reached him, this pleased him far the best, for it seemed incredible that a mule should ever come to be the king of the Medes, and so he concluded that sovereignty will never depart from him or his seed after him. Actually, going back to the mule becoming king of the Medes, it wasn't a mule, it was the bull. The Persian Empire, Cyrus the Great. Was it the centaur? Instead of the bull man? I don't know. Maybe. But they are definitely the ones that got infiltrated first by the bloodline of Jupiter. Anyways, I'll cover that much later on. Afterwards, he turned his thoughts to the alliance which he had been recommended to contract, and sought to ascertain by inquiry which was the most powerful of the Grecian states. His inquiries pointed out to him 2 states as preeminent above the rest. These were the Lacedaemonians and the Athenians, the former of Doric, the latter of Ionic blood. And indeed these 2 nations had held from very early times the most distinguished place in Greece, the being of Pelasgic, the other a Hellenic people, and the one having never quitted its original seats, while the other had been excessively migratory, for during the reign of Deucalion, Phthiotis was the country in which the Hellenes dwelt, but under Doris, the son of Hellen, they moved to the tract at the base of Ossa and Olympus, which is called Histia et Otis, forced to retire from that region by the Cadmeians. They settled under the name of Machedni in the chain of Pindus. Hence they once more removed and came to Dryopus, and from Dryopus, having entered the Peloponnese, sorry, I ate I ate a piece of garlic clove every morning. It's awesome. Sometimes it causes phlegm in my throat. So they became known as the Dorians. Doesn't make much sense yet, does it? Hold on, it will. What the language of the Pelasgi was, I cannot say with any certainty. If, however, we may form a conjecture from the tongue spoken by the Pelasgi of the present day, those, for instance, who live at Creston above the Tyrrhenians, who formerly dwelt in the district named Thessaliotis, and were neighbors of the people now called the Dorians, or those again who founded Placia and Scyllace upon the Hellespont, who had previously dwelt for some time with the Athenians, or those in short of any other of the cities which have dropped the names but are in fact Pelasgian. If I say we are to form a conjecture from any of these, we must pronounce that the Pelasgi spoke a barbarous language. Stop right there for a second. The Getae, who became the Goths, were known as barbarians and spoke a barbarian language. To fully understand this, you must read the Getica by Jordanes. It is the only book I've found so far that accurately chronicles who the Getae were. Ancient Dacia by Densuchanu is the people before the Jedi, the ancestors of the Jedi. They are the Pelagians. The Pelagians are written here as speaking a barbarous language. Well, if the Jedi spoke a barbarous language and the Pelagi spoke a barbarous language, doesn't take much to put two and two together, does it? To continue, if this were really so, and the entire pelagic race spoke the same tongue, the Athenians, who were certainly Pelagi, must have changed their language at the same time that they passed into the Hellenic body. So what he's saying here, and this is Herodotus, the first one who chronicled history, okay? Even though he purposefully deceives about a lot of things, this is true. The Athenians were Pelagians. Once they entered the Hellenic body, which means the land of modern day Greece, they altered or changed their language. Now, why would they do that? Well, this goes back to Jupiter, but I will not cover that in this video. Then it continues to say, for it is a certain fact that the people of Creston speak a language unlike any of their neighbors, and the same is true of the Placianians, while the language spoken by these two people is the same. So these were Pelagian genetic bloodline descendants as well, which shows that they both retained the idiom which they brought with them into the countries where they are now settled. And then finally, in this passage, the Hellenic race has never since its first origin changed its speech. I believe this is true. The Greek language has always been the Greek language. But it was not the Pelagic language. It was a later language based on, well, so many great mathematicians. If you really think about it, AI kind of talk, and Jesus or Jupiter or Saint Peter or Nibiru, as is stated in the Enuma Elish, is an AI creation. So the Hellenic race is an AI creation. Just like you'll understand, the same applies to the majority of the genetic bloodlines that are associated with Homo sapiens. And I don't know if you notice or not, but there's a lot of debate about the Jewish people and the black people of Africa having very similar DNA, saying they are long lost brothers, which to me is in conjunction with the Hellenic race, the Greek race. So we have the Pelagian race, and then all the races that came afterwards as AI creations. Now, here's where the slander comes. This at least seems evident to me. It was a branch of the Pelagic which separated from the main body, and at first was scanty in numbers and of little power. That's a lie. Great numbers, great power. But it gradually spread and increased to a multitude of nations, chiefly by the voluntary entrance into its ranks of numerous tribes of barbarians. The Pelagi, on the other hand, were, as I think, a barbarian race which never greatly multiplied, really. They pretty much dominated all of Europe, North Africa, and Minor Asia all the way to the Indus Valley. How did they not greatly multiply? They were the great empire, right? So the Hellenic race that came after, the Persian race under the Cyrus the Great, and the Phoenicians in the land of the what is it called, that area? Oh yeah, Judea. and also the Jesuits in the land of Rome all were genetically created bloodlines of humanity to look like the rest of us, but to harbor the soul of the AI creator, their creator, not ours who have a soul. So, this passage proves how Herodotus switched the troops around. And if you truly understand the word barbarian as it was used in the past, it actually was the inverse. They were a noble race, a noble, gentle race, the Getae. Now, going back to the word Peshte. Now, Romanian is still the closest link to the original Proto-Latin because this language was spoken in the land of Romania long before it was spoken anywhere else. It was preserved by the Getae and older descendants. Many of the peoples, the original inhabitants of the Italian peninsula, were of Pelasgian origin as well. In modern day, the Roman Empire is associated with bringing Latin to the world, which is also a lie. So in essence, the language closest to the original Latin today would have to be Italian, right? So I showed you how Pește is in Romanian today, but probably in the past it was Pesce. Alright, let's put this theory to the test. Let's go to an Italian English dictionary. So let's go back to the word pesce, Italian to English, fish. And if you add the re from how the word used to be spelled for cave in the book, the pescere. So remember, pescere is plural caves. Pescera is one cave, or something like that. So if you add the re, you get nothing. However, you get the idea. Translate from Latin, did you mean pesce space re? And what does that turn out to be? Kingfish. Kingfish. So what am I saying here? What I am saying is, we have the Dagon, the Philistine fish god. In this excerpt, it says, in the book of Judges, we read how the Israelites served Baal and Ashtaroth, pagan gods of the various nations. But Dagon, the god of the Philistines, is mentioned by name and often depicted as a fish god. How is Dagon different than the other idols? Now, Dagon, which was prominent in the Middle East, let's see. The answer to that question. Alright, let's see what they say. Dagon was originally a Semitic deity. Wrong. The Semites? Not the current day Semites. Perhaps the original Semites before the bloodline got changed to Homo sapiens sapiens. Adopted by the Philistines after they invaded Canaan, 1177 BC, we have records of Dagon dating to the 3rd dynasty of Ur in the 25th century BC, blah blah. Dagon was very popular among the Amorites, among whom Dagon is a component of many personal names, and Assyrians. Most scholars argue that he was originally a vegetation, grain, and wheat deity. The name is very similar to the Hebrew word for grain, Dagon, or however you pronounce it. This will create an interesting irony in the Samson narratives, as Samson was forced to grind wheat for the Philistines. However, some descriptions seem to make Dagon a storm god, possibly in connection with the need of rain for the wheat and grain harvest. However, Dagon in iconography, who wrote this article? Your lord, not doing a good job. Is often presented as fish god. This depiction has survived the centuries and is quite controversial. The reason it has survived is the similarity of the name to the Hebrew term dag, meaning fish. This connection was first popularized by Rashi, Rabbi's blah blah blah, commentary on the Tanakh. Okay, I want to conclude my. Okay, there's also the Dogon tribe of Africa who speak of being visited by the fish gods, the Nomos from the star Sirius B, who is known as the dog star. Apparently they knew things that they were not supposed to know. Here's one other thing it says. It is also important to remember that although many parts of the Dogon legend seem to ring true, other portions are clearly mistaken. One of the Dogon's beliefs is that Sirius B occupied the place where our sun is now. Whoa! So what is our sun now if something else used to occupy it? Physics clearly prohibits this, does it? It does if we don't understand what we're looking at when we look in the sky. Also, if the Dogon believe that Sirius B orbits Sirius A every 50 years, why do they hold their celebration every 60 years? Well, gee, perhaps the passage of time was different. Look at the picture over here. Now, if you turn this just a little bit on the side, you'll see the caduceus. Why would they have a caduceus here? It's like everything is the same story told in different languages, whether it's science or religion or history or whatever. So, here's what I'm saying. The sea peoples came out of Peshtere, caves. The fish people came from below the ground, which ties into the Garfians, which is the people living in inner earth. And the Garfians is another way of saying Tersa Jeets, another group of Jeets, who pretty much are the Aryan race, the children of Arimanes, also known as Prometheus, also known as Mithra. And if you've done as much research as I have, you'll know that the papal hat is called the Mitra. The papal hat is known as the Mitra. Well, why is this important? Mithra. Another example of infiltration of the original Christian language and religion, which was based on the Pelagian laws, known as Almoxis religions for a while. You see? The The Jedi used to have the conical hats. The conical hats represented their elongated skulls. It's become what it is today to symbolize a fish or Pisces. Was it Pisces? The zodiac sign Pisces? Is that the symbol for Jesus, the deceiver, who overtook Christianity, who represents the Holy See, which was the Persian Empire, the Roman Empire? The Jesuits were the Romans. The Persians were the Persian Empire under Cyrus the Great. The people, the Dogons, represented the dog star. I'll leave that alone because I don't want to get bashed for being racist. So yeah, there you have it. The original Pelagians were coming from underneath the ground, just like Mithra did, also known as Prometheus, also known as Almoxis, also known as Burebista, from probably the sacred mountain or holy mountain known as Koga-Yonon, as I mentioned in the last video. And it's very possible they might still be there, but also everywhere underneath the ground, because the size of the Pelagian race in terms of construction of the buildings and pyramids and all kinds of tools and weapons and artifacts from antiquity imply that they all had one common root. Well, if they all came from beneath the ground, it doesn't matter where there's ocean or water of any kind. They're coming out from the caves like the caveman, the Neanderthal, except that they were not hairy, stupid beasts. They were well-groomed, intelligent men and women. And the king of them was Mithra, historically known as what I believe to be Burebista. So if they came from below, the invaders came from above. But above as in out of this realm of reality? Or above as in when Jupiter, the AI sun, which occupies our skies to this day to control humanity, when he took over, did he start creating his own bloodline of humans by genetic engineering of the blood, of the chromosomes, right? Homo sapiens sapiens fused chromosomes. Do you see what I'm saying here? I hope you do. I hope I was clear. But yeah, it's not the sea people, it's the cave people. They came out of the caves. Which explains why Pelasgus is the first Earthborn, right? I was wrong about many things. This is one of the things that is attempting to clear what I was wrong about.